So you came very highly recommended.
I'm scared that, I don't know. Some people might not want my opinion, though.
Well, then they shouldn't be listening to podcasts.
True, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Welcome to the Hey Chaplain podcast. My name is Jared Altick, and I'm a chaplain with the police department. Hey Chaplain is an officer wellness podcast produced for cops and covers topics like your career, wellness, and law enforcement culture. Mother's Day is fast approaching, and this is your annual reminder to call your mom. Better yet, go surprise her with a visit. Or, if possible, go to church with her on Mother's Day. That'll score some serious favorite child points. To help you remember everything you've put her through, I've decided to do an interview with a law enforcement mom. I asked on multiple Facebook groups, who's the best LEO mom out there? And I got several enthusiastic nominations. One of those moms was nominated by her son, a police officer in Haugen, Kansas. And that LEO mom, Amy Paden, was actually willing to be interviewed by a podcaster in Kansas City. So listen to Amy's story and listen to her wisdom. And when you're done, call your mom. Here's Amy Paden. Hello, Amy. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm glad to talk to you today. I'm glad I have you on the phone. You were nominated as the best LEO mom by your son, Mason. And he's a cop in Haugen, Kansas. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So can you tell me about, because he's not the only cop you're connected to. You married into a family of cops, didn't you?
Yes. Well, at the time when I married my husband, his dad was the chaplain.
Oh, really?
For the Barton County Sheriff's Office. And then my brother-in-law was actually a dispatcher at the time.
Okay.
And now he is at the Great Bend Police Department.
So sheriff's office, police department, and then eventually your son, right?
Yes. And his dog was actually the first pit bull to ever become a law enforcement dog.
Oh, really? First pit bull canine in the state of Kansas, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was a big deal. He actually made it to America's Top Dog.
Oh, really?
On TV. Yep. Well, they always have a canine with regular dogs, on that show. And so, Kano is his name. He actually went to California with Mason and they did the America's Top Dog show.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. So several connections, both the two-legged and four-legged kind to law enforcement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you've got a lot of experience being connected to law enforcement and going through all the good and the bad, some of the different struggles that different law enforcement families have to deal with. What do law enforcement families struggle to understand about what their cop is going through in the job?
Sometimes when they come home from work, they don't want to talk.
Yeah.
They'll struggle too with some of the stuff they've seen, and it's hard for us to understand that.
And they used up all of their energy, the emotional energy it takes to solve conflict. They've probably used it up in all the calls they went on, right? And they come home and there's no more gas in that tank. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just, sometimes it's just really hard.
Yeah. You were telling me earlier about an incident. You were actually doing a ride-along with your husband. Yeah. Would you tell me that story again?
We just were out patrolling on county roads, or it was actually a highway, a county blacktop, I should say.
Okay.
And we were just driving and running radar, and he clocked somebody that I think the speed limit was 55, and I honestly don't remember how fast he was going, maybe 75, 80. Mm-hmm. He was going pretty quick. We turned around and he took off on us and started going down all these dirt roads. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die. Our kid is not even 2 years old. He's going to grow up without parents because of some idiot that is not pulling over for a simple speeding violation. At the time, that's all it was speeding. And so it continued through Barton County, went into the next county. at one point in time, he was probably a quarter of a mile to half a mile ahead of us. And it was dark. And all of a sudden we see this big flash of light up in the sky. And we're like, this is January. There's no fireworks or anything. And by the time we caught up to where this light was, this truck had hit the intersection and came down and rolled and hit a telephone pole. So the transformer blew up. And that was what we saw. And so we're sitting there in the car. At the time, we thought these electrical wires were on top of this truck. And Dave's like, he's just kind of talking out loud while this is being recorded. He's like, I don't know if I should go up there. And I said, I don't think you should, because if that's still a live wire, that's not good. I'm sitting here by myself because nobody else was quite close to us. They were very close to having him blocked in. It was still a couple miles away, but he did eventually go up to the car because it was a telephone line. Once the other officers got there, it was a telephone line. So he did go up to the vehicle, and it was a 16-year-old kid that was late to pick up his date for a dance.
Oh, wow.
And he ended up dying. It was a horrible ordeal. One, the kid died.
Yeah.
The parents would drive around town with a trailer and a sign that said, Barton County Sheriff's Officer David Paden killed my 16-year-old son.
Oh, wow.
And he would drive that around town. He'd park it wherever, so everybody could see it. We've been through the ringer with stuff like that. I would be very upset too, as a mother, if my son would do something like that, take off from the cops and then, get killed. I would be upset with the officer or the whole situation,
So he takes off for a high-speed chase for tens of miles, into another county.
Yeah,
and
into another county, and then came back into Barton County. I mean, it was just bad. And then to see your husband going through this, then you become angry.
Yeah. Yeah, no one prepares the officer's family for those kinds of things.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Yeah, that's not something that goes away quickly. And the pain of it doesn't go away quickly either, does it? No.
A few years later, it was Labor Day weekend, and in Hoisington, they have a big Labor Day parade. And I happened to be at a friend's house for that, and my husband was out patrolling and headed to Hoisington. He was headed to Hoisington, and a call came out of a reckless driver on the highway, and the sheriff at the time was going southbound, and Dave was going northbound, and he radios, "Hey, I think he just passed you, Dave." So Dave pulls off on the shoulder of the road. He was a canine officer at this time. So his windows were tinted in the back of the car because the canine was back there.
Right.
And he pulled off on the side of the road, and he was going to make a U-turn to go back after the car, but he had to wait for traffic, and he was getting ready to pull out, and a motorcycle hit him.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And the guy flipped and rolled down the highway, and, Dave had to watch that, and I got a phone call saying I needed to get up there, and, I got up to the scene, and it was a bad deal, but, it made USA Today, is that what it's called? The newspaper.
Yeah,
I mean, it made national news. He had to go to court for involuntary manslaughter. Fortunately, he didn't have any charges against him. But I mean, it's stuff like that you don't think about.
Yeah.
Something like that happening, that your husband could go away to prison.
Yeah.
Because of involuntary manslaughter. He didn't intentionally. I mean, it was an accident, but I mean, that was horrible. He had death threats after him. and that's when they ended up pulling him in and putting him in detectives to get him off the road for his own safety.
Yeah. Yeah. How many years did those deaths kind of hang over you guys? I mean, is it still
Oh, they
something?
still do.
Yeah. Okay.
They still do, because if we drive to Hoisington, the memorials are right there. It's a constant reminder.
Yeah. Mercy.
And that was 18 years ago.
Yeah. Goodness. So what do you tell like a young, new law enforcement spouse? I mean, what can you tell them to help them prepare for the kinds of curveballs that might get thrown at you? I mean, these are, pretty tragic things that could happen to your officer. Even if they're physically safe, they could be pretty traumatized by what they go through. So what do you tell a young law enforcement spouse?
I mean, when you're in the law enforcement family, the thin blue line family, they all have your back. And I think that helps. You got that support of other spouses that have gone through something similar.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have that.
Do you feel like you've had a good network? You're in a fairly rural county, right in the middle of the state of Kansas. So do you feel like you have a good network out there?
Yeah, I do. It might be small, but it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, that's what counts. Yeah. Take quality over quantity. Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
You went through some pretty traumatic things with your husband's career. Right. Your brother-in-law is in law enforcement. Father-in-law was connected to law enforcement. How did you feel when your son wants to go into law enforcement? Was that something you were on board with?
No. I'm sorry, no. We have 3 boys, actually. Mason, obviously, it is in his blood. I mean, he's always wanted to be a cop, And, when he was younger, that's a good career to go into, especially when Dave was in it. It was a respected career.
Yeah.
People respected officers.
A noble profession. Yeah.
Yes. Now, these days, people are so rude and disrespectful, and I didn't like the fact, that he was going to go into it. And of course, he got a job in Hoisington, and that's where he is now.
And paint a picture of that for me. So Hoisington is a small town north of Great Bend.
Yes.
How big a town?
2,657 people.
Okay, so a couple thousand people. I didn't realize it was even that big. But how many sworn officers are on duty at a time?
On duty at a time, just one.
Okay, so he's going to go be a cop in a department where when he's on duty, he's basically by himself.
He is. He's very, very proactive. He is looking for stuff.
A great quality in a cop. Not sure if that's the quality that cop moms appreciate.
Right. Yes, because, less than a month ago, he's working overnights, and they get a call of a suspicious vehicle around a insurance company, and he decides to go, check it out, and these people take off on him, and he chases them all through Hoisington, and at one point in time, you hear him say, "Dispatch, I don't know if I was just shot at or if the car backfired."
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at this time, one of the Barton County Sheriff's officers were on their way to back him up. And he continues to chase them after this,
potential
backfire,
shot.
Potential shot. And eventually his car won't go anymore.
Oh, no.
It just kind of peters out on the side of the highway, because he finally got him out on the highway, was, going after him on the highway. And so the sheriff's officer ended up getting in behind these people and chased them to another small town. They ended up wrecking, but they had shot at him 3 times.
Oh, wow.
And they apprehended 2 of the 3 people. And the 3rd person took off running down the highway, ended up stealing a car. And they just arrested him last week in California.
Oh.
he had the U.S. Marshals after him.
And so obviously Mason's car petered out because it had been shot.
The bullet went in the radiator.
Wow. How did you hear about this? This happened overnight.
Yes, I woke up Saturday morning and Dave's like, hey, Mason got shot at last night. And I just stopped and I'm like, what? And I started like tearing up and crying. And I'm like, what? And he told me and he goes, isn't that cool? And I'm like, Dave, that is not cool. No. that is not cool.
Right.
He goes, well, you know what I mean. He goes, if anything happened, it would be, I would be very upset. And I'm like, I know, but it's still not cool.
No.
Maybe it is for a cop to get shot at. Maybe they think it's cool. I don't know.
No, it's different from mom's perspective.
Exactly. So, that's something you don't want to hear about.
What do you tell someone who is a worried parent, mom or dad, of a new, young, proactive, go-getter cop? I see a lot of moms and dads where they're at the academy graduation and they have no familiarity with law enforcement. So is it better for them to stay ignorant, or should they ask more? Should they inform themselves more? What do you think is the right tact?
I don't know if there is a right or wrong, but I'm interested in it. So I like to know the information.
Okay.
I do. I like it a lot. And sometimes Dave's like, I can't tell you this. And I'm like, but why? I want to know what happened.
Right. Yeah. You would rather be armed with information than
I would
be
rather
ignorant.
know.
You're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would say Dave's parents, sometimes they're like, I don't even want to know. I probably don't want to know. So, yeah, I don't know what's right.
See, I feel like, because I'm thoroughly civilian. I'm a police chaplain, but I've never been a sworn officer, and I don't come from an LEO family. And so I thought it was, as far as me worrying about the young officers out on patrol, it actually helped for me to go out with them and to see all of the procedures and equipment and things that protect them. There are things that you think you understand from watching TV shows that cops don't actually do. And there's reasons behind it. There's policies that protect them from getting into too much trouble most of the time. And that actually gave my heart some reassurance that these guys and girls were not in terrible danger all the time, because there's actually a lot of very intelligent decision making that's happening that keeps some of the bad stuff from occurring.
Some of it.
Yeah, some of it. Yeah, some of it's unavoidable. Yeah. And God bless them, because that young person has decided to choose a career that puts them in the path of danger on purpose for the sake of others. And that's a noble thing. And very likely they're choosing that because of principles and ethics that were taught to them by mom and dad. And so
I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate, or are you going to have another generation of Padens in law enforcement?
Well, I have a grandson that's 9, and I can kind of see him wanting to do that, as much as I will probably discourage it. Yeah, I don't.
It's hard to say.
Depends upon the day. If I'm like, it's an interesting job, because I do like to say, when people come to me and start complaining about cops, I'm like, now listen, did this happen? Did this happen? There's reasons why something takes so long to get done is because they have steps they have to go through. Mm-hmm. Goodness sakes, this has been quite a while back. Years ago, people would be on Facebook saying the cops didn't do anything. They didn't do this and they didn't do that. And I finally had enough. And I said, you know what? It's pretty bad when your husband misses your son's 10th birthday and your anniversary a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever, because he is not home because he's working on a case, but yet the cops don't do anything.
Yeah.
That's a sacrifice we had to give up as a family because he had a job to do.
Yeah.
But other people don't see that.
No, they're ignorant.
They're just
they don't know.
Yeah, they're ignorant. They just don't. They think cops don't do a darn thing. And I'm like, that's not true. because
Yeah.
my husband has missed a lot in 30 some years of law enforcement. We've been married, it'll be 25 years in August. So I feel like we've made it a long time
Yes. Yes.
being law enforcement. I mean, they miss a lot.
And you've felt the sacrifices. You know what the cost was.
Right.
You guys went through the ridicule. You went through the negative press, the kind of slander directed at your husband working a noble
Definitely.
profession. You know the risks that your family members, including your son, have taken to protect people who sometimes don't even want it. You know what those costs are. What has helped you through the hardest times?
Probably keeping busy. I am a busy person. And I mean, we've gone through counseling for some of the stuff that's happened. Yeah, I don't know. I try to keep my mind off
Sure.
certain things like that.
Sure. What's a good way to help your child that's in law enforcement?
Just be supportive.
Yeah.
I mean, they chose that because they love it, and just have their back.
Yeah. They probably feel called to it.
Yeah. I mean, after this happened to Mason, I told him, I said, the next time you see me, you better hug me. That's all I got to say. So he did. The next day he came and saw me, and we, just a big hug. I mean, it kind of opens your eyes to think, holy cow, that was a little too close to home.
Sure.
I mean, you hear about it all the time, but you just don't think it's going to happen right here to your kid. Or, yeah, it was an eye opener.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So if I'm passing smack dab through the middle of Kansas, is there a good place for me to grab a bite to eat?
Stafford County in Seward, Mom's Bar and Grill in Seward, and that's in Stafford County. That you get the best hand-breaded chicken fried steak.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds really good. And I can probably find you there sometimes?
Yes, on the weekends, because that's my weekend job.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Amy, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you take some time to talk to me, especially on very short notice. Like I said, Mason nominated you, and I'm like, well, let me do some research and track you down real quick. And I appreciate you coming and talking about being in a law enforcement family.
I appreciate it, too. It was fun.
I want to thank Mason Paden for responding to my request on Facebook and nominating his mom, Amy. She did a fantastic job, and she was exactly the kind of person I was looking for. I appreciate all of the nominations I received on different Facebook groups for Best LEO Mom 2023. I'm sure all of them were worthy candidates. If you know an outstanding law enforcement mom, probably one that's wise and witty, a little sassy, and probably battle-scarred from all of the ups and downs of family life and law enforcement, please contact me. If we can work out the logistics of an interview, then I would like to make the Best LEO Mom episode an annual thing. And special thanks to my man on the ground in Barton County, Doug Parks. He helped me put this interview together, and Doug was one of my very best friends in grade school before he moved away, and I have nothing but fond memories of him, so it was wonderful getting to reconnect with him through this process. Thanks, Doug. The views expressed here are the personal views of the host and our guest and do not necessarily represent the views of any law enforcement agency or its components. If you like this episode, please share it with a cop or someone who loves a cop. Thank you for listening to Hey Chaplain, and as always, pray for peace in our city.